Welcome to Chinwag Tuesdays, your passport to a world of language and culture.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Chinwag Tuesdays. I'm Amanda and today's special guest is Sukhi, an English teacher from sunny England. Thanks for joining me today, Sukhi.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So maybe we can start off with a bit of a self-introduction, where in England you're from and how long you've been teaching English.
So, as you said, I'm in sunny England. I actually live in Manchester. I was born in a little city called Derby and then was brought up in Nottinghamshire before coming to university here in Manchester. And I never left because I love it so much. And I've been teaching for around, I always say 14, 15 years. Started off privately and hosting students, so a little bit unofficially. And then I started working at schools in Manchester. I worked for a couple of them over this period of time. So I was in schools for a total of about 8 years on and off. And then after the pandemic, like many stories, many teachers and coaches, I went solo, and here I am now coaching and teaching at the same time.
That's so cool. And so you don't do any work in schools now, just completely solo, all online?
Yes, I work completely for myself, all online currently, but watch this space. Maybe I'll bring it back to the physical world
Yeah,
soon come.
cool. Now, one thing that I think is really great, what you've started doing is you are trying to incorporate a lot of mindfulness practice, breath work, and eventually some yoga to your lessons. So tell me about that. How did that come about? And yeah, what are your plans with that? I think it's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's all been quite experimental, to be honest, and it's only really within the past 6 months or so that I've actually been feeling comfortable enough to really show everybody on Instagram, online, that that's what I do. I think before I was feeling a little bit self-conscious about it because it's something that's not actively or openly talked about, merging mindfulness with teaching, putting them both together. And I guess it came about through personal experience. Firstly, I recognized how mindfulness can really help. Mindfulness is the practice of bringing yourself to the present time and time and time again. It's the nature of continuously noticing your thoughts without judgment, noticing your environment without judgment, and allowing your thoughts to pass. Now, that is something that takes a lot of practice and a lot of repetition. It's like a muscle, and you have to keep working it, working it. So I've been actually, since I have become more in tune with what mindfulness is, I realized that I've been doing it, practicing it for most of my adult life, but then actually getting accredited in being able to train in it and be a practitioner is something new. So I use this with my clients. I use mindfulness with my clients, and like I said, it all stems from my own story with mental health, and I think it's important to talk about those issues.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not knowing really how to deal with what's going on in your body, and how to try and overcome that by yourself is it's a really tricky thing to do. So I turned to mindfulness when I was going through really anxious periods in my life, and I think a lot of people had this happen, particularly when the pandemic happened and things
Yeah.
came up for them, and we were forced to be confronted with ourselves, right?
Yeah, so true. Yeah. It's like, was COVID the cause, or was COVID the kind of what's the word, kind of pushing it to the forefront, right?
The instigator.
That's it. That's what I was thinking of, instigator. Thank you.
I think there are many stories that have come out from COVID, and a lot of people were, because of the time that we had to spend with ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm generalizing here. Of course, everybody's story is different, but a lot of the stories I've heard, people having to spend time with themselves, it actually made them confront what was perhaps being suppressed by a lifetime of running all the time and not really dealing with or confronting or allowing stuff to come up. So yeah, COVID
Yeah.
was an instigator. I think it could have been a part of the anxiety, but I think for me it was what had built up throughout my life and a lot of suppressing stuff. And yeah, so I talk quite openly about it. I don't think it's anything that people should be ashamed of. I think it's
Hmm.
a very common story these days, and I think more people who talk about it openly and with less shame is really important. So yeah,
Yeah.
I actually fell into holistic practices more in order to deal with this new mind body connection that I kind of landed into. And it was all due to anxiety. So I thank my anxiety.
Yes, yeah, wow. I mean, I'm sorry that you've had that happen with the anxiety, but it's so interesting to hear about how, I guess, when these kind of situations happen, sometimes it does force us to reevaluate and maybe look at our lives a little bit differently and maybe push us in new directions that we wouldn't have done before.
Totally. Yeah. I think if you can, if, well, the only way I could really overcome these kinds of thoughts or the kind of things that were going on in my body was to become more aware of it. And mindfulness led me down that path.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what does, I guess, a session with your clients look like in terms of incorporating mindfulness into English practice?
Yeah, good question. So it's all very much organic within the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So the clients who tend to come to me these days are high level second plus English speakers. So this is anywhere from, B2 level, upper intermediate, to advanced, to then super advanced, completely, I would say, fluent. And
Yeah.
one thing I want to bring to the attention of of people who are listening is what I realized is over the course of the last few years, the clients who came to me were pretty much fluent, but what they would do is mistake needing more vocabulary or to refine their grammar skills for actually finding ways to overcome their thought processes, their inner critic,
Mm-hmm.
or their approach to communicating in their non-main language, typically in professional environments.
Mm.
So there was this kind of missing link, there was this kind of lack of knowing that it wasn't the language skills that was needed. It was like a new approach to communicating. And I think this is where I kind of bridge the gap now. And I've been learning how to do that over the past few years. And now I feel confident enough to be like, yeah, this is probably what you need. So I think the first thing that happens in my sessions is identifying exactly what the needs are of my clients. And sometimes, it is language, that's fine. That's part
Mm-hmm.
of the learning journey and it's part
Yeah.
of a language journey. But the clients who come to me have spent years and years and years and loads of money and loads of time on building language and building
Mm-hmm.
on their language skills and their grammar. So then I just kind of find within open dialogue, like, what is it that you need?
Yeah.
Where do you feel like you want to work on your communicative process rather
Mm-hmm.
than your language skills? And I again bridge the gap between language and communication skills. So
Yeah.
a lot of the time, people come to me with issues with mindset issues, not
Mm.
feeling confident,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I'm curious. So you are planning, well, you have plans to become a certified yoga, would we say trainer, coach? What is the word here? To become certified in yoga teaching. How do you envision that's going to look like in the future with what you're currently doing? I'm so interested in this.
Well,
Would that be a
I am
separate
already
thing
yoga.
or is that kind of all, yeah, how does that work?
This is a good question. And thanks for asking, because it makes me reflect on my own process. And I think one thing that's interesting about what's going on with me is it's all very organic and it's all happening in the process. So there was no big like dream, or,
Yeah.
I didn't think when I was a teenager, like, oh, I want to be a yoga instructor and then I want to use that with client. No, it's all just kind of grown. So I am actually already yoga teacher trained. I've
Oh,
done
okay.
I've
Yeah.
done a 200 hours in Rishikesh in India, and it was amazing, and I had the best time. And it was, have you been to Rishikesh?
Not yet. It's on my list.
Yeah,
I
it's
need to
got its
get
own
there.
special vibe.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So I did that. And how would I incorporate yoga into classes? So yoga is not just about movement, is it? It's like it's a philosophy and it's a way of life for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
within yoga, there are philosophies that talk about how you can live and how to integrate not only movement, but breathing techniques.
Yeah.
And there are so many different breathing techniques that I learned through my yoga course. And there are so many meditation techniques that I learned through my yoga course.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
now, actually, it's strange because I had this little moment of, oh, people who come to me, the clients who come to me, are having trouble working with their thoughts, with their limiting beliefs, with their
Mm-hmm.
confidence. And I was like, why don't I use some of that knowledge that I've gained? And
Yeah.
so it's less about the asanas, the movements, the postures, the
Mm.
poses. It's more about the meditation, the breathing. However, I do want to incorporate slight movement, even maybe chair yoga. Because why not? Get yourself out of your mind and into your body and
Yes.
start moving your body and then start speaking in English. Because what I've recognized is taking the attention away from being a perfect speaker to just doing something else and like moving your body or doing a
Yeah.
few breathing exercises or putting yourself on mute and we all scream together. It's so random and weird, but it works.
I love it.
People like, do you?
Yes, that's so
People
cool.
say to me afterwards, the feedback is always like, wow, that was strange, but I feel good. It's like, exactly. Let's do it again.
Yeah, that's actually so interesting that you say that about that yoga is not just about the movements because, for me, if yes, I live in India, but I've never really gotten into yoga. So for me, as someone looking out, it, I do think that yoga is just movement. So now that you've kind of explained that how it's not just that, and you've got all the other different parts of yoga that incorporate that way of life essentially. Yeah, and I think it's really great, like you said, that the chair yoga would be pretty cool, especially if most of us do sit all day at our desks, so trying to do that and yeah, incorporate that all together, it's, oh my gosh, it's super niche, but I love it.
Yeah, it is pretty niche, but I think actually, I mean, I don't have any statistics with this, but it's some research that I want to do. I think in the Western world, it's quite niche, but if we go more Eastern to
True.
the Eastern world of schooling and meditation is integrated and journaling is integrated, but it's taking a while to catch on over here. So I'm just
Yeah.
merging the two worlds of it. Yeah, but it is super niche. Like lots of people who come to me are like, no, I just want to speak in English. Why are you making me do a yoga pose? Like, okay, we don't need to do yoga, don't worry.
Yeah.
So I did want to make this clear. Like, this doesn't need to happen with every single one of my
Super
clients. Some clients
personalized
come
to
to
them.
me, exactly. Some people, it's not for everyone. And neither is meditation. I recognize that and I understand it. But I
Mm.
think people's perceptions of these practices are are skewered a little bit by what they're
Yeah.
fed, like what yoga is, what meditation
Mm.
is. The other day in my session, I just want to say while it's in my head, I did a mindfulness meditation, which was a body scan.
Mm.
And before doing this with the members of my current course called Mindfully English, I always say, and I give warnings as such and any medical issues, and I always say if you want to opt out, don't do it. You can just go on silent and mute for a bit. But everyone's super keen to try out these methods, and a body scan is just, I was guiding them. Again, it's about presence, so bringing your presence and attention to the body and its sensations, and I'm just guiding them from their feet up to their head, and their attention and where it's placed. And the feedback to that kind of thing, despite it being an English course, integrating that, the feedback afterwards was really, really positive. And that's the reason why I do this, because I know the effects it can have on people and how relaxing it can be and how it can get you out of your head,
Yes. Because, with language practice, a lot of it is really you're in your own head. Oh, I don't know enough vocabulary. I'm making too many mistakes. How embarrassing. I just made a mistake to this native speaker. And all of these sorts of things that run through your head when you're trying to speak another language, or if you're trying to think. I know this happens to me in Hindi. I've forgotten a word and I'm like, oh my God, they're waiting for me to speak. How embarrassing. And the other person doesn't even really care.
That's so true. That's so true. Do you find that you have these thoughts then when you're trying to speak in Hindi, like limiting thoughts or things like that?
Yeah, and you know what? Something that I do have quite a bad habit of doing that I'm trying to break is that I panic and then automatically say, sorry, meri Hindi achhi nahi. So I'm sorry, my Hindi is not good, right? But then that is a limiting belief. And then if I keep telling myself that, I'm going to believe it, right? So I'm trying to reshape that to like, sorry, like, main Hindi seekh rahi hu. I'm learning Hindi, sort of thing. Notice I have my Indian English accent for sorry. So that is something that I am trying to change a little bit more because of that reason, is that if I keep telling myself something, I'm going to believe it, and then I'm not going to make progress because I keep kind of keeping myself in this box of my Hindi's not good, sorry.
Super, super interesting and so important. I think that's something that can be applied across the board to language learners. It's not just specific to English, is it?
Yeah.
I think that's a really important point, and that's something else that I work with. Mindfulness doesn't necessarily always have to be about being in the present, but it's also about how do I garner a more loving and compassionate inner voice, because the inner critic for most of my clients is loud and they're always like, I'm not perfect, or I'm sorry for my English, like you just said, I'm sorry for my Hindi, but then just changing the words, just changing that perspective is so powerful. Instead of sorry, I'm sorry for my English, sorry for my Hindi, it's more about what did you say? I'm learning. Yeah, I'm a learner seeking to learn. Or I speak so many languages, so I'm sorry about that, but not really sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry for speaking so many languages.
Yeah. I was talking about this with Dan in my previous interview about how, English learners are really scared. Well, I think language learners in general, we're quite scared when we're speaking to native speakers that if we don't understand what they're saying, we'll automatically just say, can you repeat yourself? But it's a matter of trying to be specific. What is the problem? Is it that you don't understand the vocabulary? Is it that they're talking too fast? So by being very specific about what it is, so for example, for me, people speak way too fast. So I have to say to them, I can't get the R right. Dire dire boliye. Please speak slowly, right? So that's the problem for me. And then they'll speak slowly. But I think a lot of English learners do is that they just say, can you repeat that? And then, the same thing will happen. And it's just trying to, I think, be a little bit more specific as well and not be scared of asking someone to repeat themselves, because you are learning a language. And especially in the West, where people don't really have a need to know another language, you're one step above them by having a second, third, maybe fourth language.
So true. So true. That's something else that comes up a lot in my communication sessions. And why I call them communication sessions is because they're not necessarily English language learning lessons. And the reason why is, I think what you've just mentioned is actually a communication technique. Like, it's a very specific situation that comes up in a lot of my clients as real life communicative settings, which is miscommunication, misunderstanding happens all the time. And what tends to happen is the limiting beliefs are switched on as soon as there's a misunderstanding, like, oh, it
Yes.
must be my English. It's my English. I'm so sorry. I'm
Yeah.
so bad. I'm so terrible. This starts to come up, this
Mm-hmm.
narrative immediately. But like we said earlier, the switch of the inner narrative, turning it, is really powerful. But
Mm-hmm.
also just finding ways to specifically overcome those moments of miscommunication, like you did perfectly. Like, can you speak a bit more slowly? I'm
Yeah.
learning Hindi. That is so much more empowering, in my opinion, than
Mm-hmm.
saying, I'm really sorry, I didn't understand. Can you repeat? And then again, I'm really sorry, I didn't understand. But why
Yeah.
did you not understand? Are they
Yes.
speaking with a really thick, broad accent that you don't need
Mm-hmm.
to know in your everyday life? In which
Yeah.
case, yeah, say, "Oh, I'm not quite getting your accent.
Yeah.
Um, I've learned English in a global setting, so can you just adapt your accent a little bit?" I know that sounds like a tough thing to say to
Mm-hmm.
somebody who speaks English as a first language,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes a lot of confidence to do something
Yeah.
like that. But still,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah, no, I think it's really, really great work that you're doing, Suki. And I think it's really important that people, I think try to reframe, like we've been talking about, the way that we speak to ourselves, not even just in a language learning setting, but just in everyday life. And I think by you teaching these skills for a communication setting or English learning or whatever it is, once you give them those tools, they can apply those tools in every other part of their life.
yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so. I think these tools, I didn't learn these tools through language learning. I learned them through managing difficult situations in my life.
Yeah.
But I recognize they can be used in the language learning world, in the
Yeah.
communication world.
Yeah.
Communication is, I've learned, a whole body process. You've got to think
Mm.
about how your brain is processing so much, and people don't give
Yeah.
their brain credit, and then moving from
Yeah.
the translation, the formation of
Yeah.
opinion, the
Yeah.
ideas that you have, and then bringing them to your mouth, and then formulating different things going on in your mouth, and using your breath correctly so that it all comes. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
So I, yeah, I feel like these tools can help with that process. So yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah, definitely. You're welcome. So, how does mindfulness help your clients feel, or let's just say anyone actually, how can mindfulness help learners feel more confident and relaxed when speaking English or another language in my case?
So mindfulness can help. I'll speak about my specific situation with second plus English
Mhm.
speakers, particularly of a high level, but it can be for all levels. Mindfulness gets you out of your head and into your body. That's what I feel like I
Mhm.
do with my clients. Doing that through body scans, breathing techniques. Scientifically, neuroscience has said as well that calming the nervous system enables you to produce speech in a more calm and efficient and composed way.
Mhm.
So for some of my clients, I work with some CEOs, people who work in international companies. They speak English to a global team.
Mhm.
It's not only to speakers of English as a native language or a first language, it's to global speakers. And um, mindfulness can bring them to the present moment, can really get you in tune with your body. Like, some people away from language can't identify what's going on in their body, and that's okay because it's a skill that you learn. So it's like, oh,
Mhm.
am I feeling nervous? Where is that nervousness? How can I sit with that? How can I name it? So, oh, I feel nervous, I feel tense in my shoulders.
Mm.
You've named the feeling, you've named the body connection, and then you can be like, okay, so I'm going to bring attention to that and let it pass. I'm going to take some deep breaths and make sure on my out breath I'm going to relax my body, you know and then I'm going to say to myself, instead of saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm nervous, say, it's okay, you got this. You're a professional. You offer more. I offer more than my language skills.
Mhm.
I can do this. I'm in this job for a reason other than my language. All of these reaffirmations. So
Yeah.
being your biggest cheerleader, that's what I try to kind of nurture in my sessions. And I do this
Mhm.
through repetitive um, or habitualizing self-compassion, kindness,
Yeah.
and also these tools which can help you calm your nervous system, calm your nerves. And ultimately, if you're calm, if you calm your nerves, it calms your breath and it will come across more composed.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah, I love it. It's so good.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so nice that you're giving me a space to talk about this like this because like I
Yeah.
said to you before, it's quite nerve-wracking because it is a little bit, some people who are coming to learn English with me, they're just like, what the hell are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
what is this? What's going on? Who are you? I
Yeah.
just want to know some vocab, you know what I mean? Why are you telling me to close my eyes? It's like
Yeah. But you know what, though? I think it's really great that from the sounds of it, is that your clients are open to it, that they are open minded enough
Mm,
to think, you know what, fuck it, let's just give it a go. Let's see what happens, sort of
yeah.
thing. And, if people, aren't into that, that's okay. They're not into it. Doesn't mean that they're wrong or you're wrong. It just means that, it's not a good fit. You go on with your day, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I want to say this and I want to state this. I talk about on my Instagram page, don't go for grammar lessons. I don't do this. I don't do that. Every part of the language journey is important. And the teachers who are doing the grammar, who are doing the localized slang, who are doing this, I respect everybody. And I think it's amazing. Everybody's got their part to play in other people's language journey.
Yeah.
Mine is just one of calming nerves for people who already have the vocab and grammar and they're believing that they need more in order to feel confident. They don't generally, from my
Yeah.
experience. They need ways to calm themselves and to use everything they've already got. But that in no way um, diminishes the language and grammar goals that
Mm.
are needed to get to that point. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to say that as well. I thought, because I
Yeah.
talk a lot about on Instagram, like, you don't need language, you don't need this to be confident,
Yeah.
but actually some people might.
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. Yes. Yeah. So, what do you think are some challenges that your clients usually face when trying to speak English confidently?
yes, good question. I think I think what's coming up, one of the biggest challenges my clients face is the way that they speak to themselves. And I know that we've mentioned this a few times, or the
Yeah.
way that they perceive their own skills, or their fear of judgment, or their
Mm-hmm.
fear of the perception of judgment from others. So that's all sounds really like deep and stuff, but that's literally what my clients come to me with
Yeah.
time and time again. It's this inner narrative of being so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Honestly, the clients who come to me have a level of fluency. The clients that have come to me over the past 4 years since going solo have a level of fluency that I never saw in schools,
Yeah.
and some people were proficient and they still come to me being so hard on themselves. And I would feel so bad for them. I'm like, how can I get you out of this headspace? Because your
Yeah.
English is incredible. You don't need me to tell you. You are so much more than your English. So
Yeah.
working on that inner narrative, but that kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
takes time. It takes
Yeah.
time to build. So my clients stay with me for
Mm-hmm.
longer than, like, I have clients for a year, 2 years, and they
Yeah.
it's like
Great.
a long process, of
Yeah.
I firstly I work with language stuff. It does
Mm.
happen, accuracy and things like that,
Yeah.
but then it moves on into, okay, what is your inner critic saying today, but not in those words. I have to
Yeah.
use very clever questioning so it's not so imposing. So
Yeah.
I think, in answer long answer to your question, it's the way that people speak to and about themselves, and
Mm.
they put it down to their English, but it goes beyond English. It's something else, and I just
Yeah.
uncover that through questioning, reflective questioning, and holistic practices.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. So,
Thank you.
okay, so based on that, like, so you've had, clients for a couple of years now. You've been doing this solo for 4 years or so. What do you think has been the biggest change you've seen in your clients after using your mindful approach?
I think it's a sense of calmness when approaching their communicative setting.
Mm.
Prior to going solo and prior to having the the courage and the guts to integrate these two things together and be open about that. Because, by the way, I was doing this already, but I kept it on the down low because
Yeah.
I was really cautious about saying this. I don't know why. Even I had to overcome like imposter syndrome and things like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was about to ask, did you feel like you had imposter syndrome?
so much, but not even just with the mindfulness and the yoga and integrating it all, but just maybe you felt this too, but just going online
Oh, for
and being
sure.
like, here I am. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was such a
Especially
hard
with
process
social
for me.
media. I think every
Yeah.
like person I speak to that I've interviewed who has a social media presence, we always end up talking about like the shitty comments and stuff like that, and you know, it
Mm.
does make it a lot harder, you know. Oh god, I still remember like the first time one of my reels, my first reel that went viral, and the terrible comments on that. Oh my gosh, I could have cried.
Oh my God. It's horrible, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
horrible to know you putting yourself on there on a platform when all you're trying to do is help people, but
Yeah.
then the impact that somebody else's, a stranger's words can have on you, it's big.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
Yeah. Yes, I just overtook your answer, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Where were we?
But yes, so in regards to the biggest change, so I think, oh, about imposter syndrome, how you
Oh yeah.
didn't really post too much about what you were doing, even though you'd been doing it for a while.
Yeah, so I went on off on a bit of off on a tangent there.
Yeah, me too, sorry.
So so I think the question was about
The biggest change
what was
that you've
oh,
seen in your students after using the mindful approach.
that's it. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, so just to finish up what I was saying, I think prior to, like I said, prior to integrating all this mindfulness stuff, I would see people feeling great about learning new vocab and feeling a bit more confident in their language use. But now what I tend to get from my clients is that they feel more hopeful about the future of communication in their non-main language.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started to get that kind of feedback where it wasn't language gains, it was more about, oh my God, I feel good. I can do whatever I want to in this
Yeah.
language, my own language, it doesn't just have to be in English.
Yeah.
That's when I started to say to myself, you're onto something here, Sukhi, because that kind of feedback,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it made me feel so proud of them and myself
Yeah.
because I've been in those, I've been in communicative settings, I mean, in English, but throughout my whole life, it's been a battle in my head. And due to
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, due to fear of perception, I can't deny that that everybody's story is their own, and mine comes
Mm-hmm.
from childhood and lots of all that stuff. Not going to go into that, but where it builds and builds within you, and then it
Mm.
you create these stories. And then when I used to enter communicative settings at work with my friends even, and I would feel anxious all the time. And so I
Yeah.
just also resonate and empathize with people, and
Yeah.
for them to say I can enter this setting in a calm and more confident way
Yeah.
rather than saying I have all the vocab in the world, it
Mm-hmm.
just makes me feel so good for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those kind of ways of measuring progress that are not numbers that I think is really important.
Mm.
You know, I've had students before who they want to do the IELTS exam or take PTE just because they want a number or some sort of level written on the paper to track their progress, right? But I think it's just as important to track progress in other ways, whether it is walking into a communicative setting and being confident. And I think that is huge. And it's not something that you can measure in numbers, but it's something that you can measure here and in here.
That's so true. That's so true. I think the industry focuses a lot on levels, and obviously, lots of people need exams, and
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. I will
Yeah.
always celebrate somebody who passes an exam.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The kind of work that goes into it. People need it for uni to get into countries.
Yeah.
I understand. Exams are needed for the more formal side of things. But what you just said, yeah, when people come to me and say, wow, I feel more confident. Wow, that's not even a problem anymore. Oh my
Yeah.
God, remember when we first started these sessions and I couldn't speak to this person freely and openly? Now I can. I'm like, yes, that's it. That's it. That's
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
So and it feels so good. And by the way, just measuring that kind of progress, actually, one way that I do it is through journaling. So that's
Oh,
another little
yes.
practice that I integrate into
Mm,
my sessions. In my latest course, Mindfully English, I've actually integrated it as a whole week. So
great.
the live session is a live journaling session. So every week there's something different in the 4 weeks, and the fourth week is a live journaling session. So I'll have loads of questions. There'll be some
Yeah.
music in the background. We'll light a candle. We'll all get cozy. We got blankets, and
Oh, I love it.
we have an hour of writing together. Even I join in with some of the cues because
Yeah.
sorry, because they are, some of them are generic, like
Mm,
talking about how you feel about yourself. So I join in with them. But yeah, that's one way to measure progress.
yeah. 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 So cool. All right.
Do you
Well,
journal?
do I journal? I've got my gratitude journal, which I do try and complete daily. But then again, I sat down to do it today and it'd been 5 days since what we were talking about before time gets away from us. I do journal, just not regularly. I actually just printed off this morning these journal prompts for the new year. So I do have a rough list or a rough outline of goals and things that I want to achieve this year, but I haven't really had time to sit down and journal it out, which I normally do. So yeah, it's not something I do on the regular, but sometimes I do it if I have a lot in my chest that I need to get out. As things come up, I'll do it. Yeah.
Nice, cool.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll start to wrap up here, Suki. But if anyone wants to contact you to know more, what's the best way to do that? Are you on, is it just Instagram or do you have other ways to contact you?
At the moment, it's only Instagram. I am having a website built as we speak, so that will be coming soon. You'll be able to find that on my Instagram. My Instagram handle currently, because I keep changing it, but it's been the same for about the past year now. But it's English and Sukhi, which is Sukhi. So that's the handle. Yeah, and see you there. I've got all my course links on there. I've got courses, when I don't know when this is going out, but I've got courses starting at the beginning of February
Mm-hmm.
2025 and throughout the year. And lots of
Mm-hmm.
new things are coming up through this year. Like you, Amanda, I've got lots of plans. Yeah. So find me
Yes.
on there. Come and say hello.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure to hear all about this, and I just wish you all the best, and I hope to see great things.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.